And I'd like to point out that we are being televised and recorded. So first on the agenda is fiscal year 13 reserve fund transfers, but I don't see any in our packet, so I think we're good to go on that. The next is to approve the minutes, and we don't have, we just had slight revisions to the 9/18 and 10/30, and Linda's working on those, and she's wrapping up the 1/16 minutes. We were just talking before everybody arrived. There have been some requests for copies of minutes of our meetings, and rather than, even though we're keeping a binder of all the minutes, we were thinking it would be easier to have them in addition to the binder posted online. So we're going to start that, like starting with this year's minutes. Debbie will post them for us. And then, and also we thought it would be good if Linda, when she's done with the minutes, like after each meeting during the week, over that weekend, she'll be preparing the minutes and sending it to all of us. And then that gives us time to review it in advance, because it's hard when we're looking at it here to really scrutinize them if we're looking at them at the last minute. So she'll send them out to everybody. You can look at them, and you can send her feedback directly if you have any updates to make to minutes. So, and Debbie pointed out with the open meeting law, we really can't be correcting one another or deliberating online, basically. So we need to just give her the feedback, and she'll make the updates as noted, and then resend it to everybody so we can look at the updates. Hopefully that will streamline the process. Any questions on any of that? Okay. So then the next item on the agenda, we're a little bit early, but hopefully that's okay. We have the selectmen up, or is it okay to start early?
Sure.
Okay.
No, we should go by it's posted.
Okay, yes.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to number 5 then. And we have one payroll item to process. Hello. So this is for Linda's work hours. She's put in for 9 hours, and the total bill is $132.12. So
I'll make a motion.
make a motion. Okay.
And I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. So we have to maybe start it over here. And then while we're just signing, I'll just move on to the next item, which was number 6, approved Finance Committee regulations and operating procedures. We had gone over these at the last meeting, and I just made some minor tweaks to some of the wording as we discussed. And then I had sent it out to everybody. Then when I talked to Sue Bailey, she pointed out one little mistake on number 5. The report that I referred to is her report, so I just changed that from the treasurer's report to the town accountant's report. So that's the only change that has been made. So did anybody have any other questions or any other changes to make to these guidelines?
No, I thought they were good.
Do I have a motion to approve these as an official?
I'll make the motion that we approve the FinCom operating regulations.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Mary, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, no nays. All right, approved. Okay. Wow, we're moving right along. Is it still too early? Okay. So
Yeah,
we'll keep
because
going?
we did post it as an appointment on
Okay.
the notice. But, you know, maybe the last item there on the meeting schedule, I did prepare a tentative meeting schedule. It's in your package towards the end with really suggested, I know you switched from Tuesday to Wednesday. Well, this represents really when we get busy. I would suggest that the FinCom start meeting every Wednesday, starting with the second Wednesday in March. And then right through to April.
Okay.
We're still trying to put together the budget based on what the Triton assessment will be, and that, we won't know that for sure until March 15th, on or before, in accordance with the Triton agreement. So we will still be really working off budgets that could be subject to severe revisions, and rather than bringing in the department heads, and then when we have to redo it again, it just takes a lot of time
Yeah.
on your end. And since you do have liaisons that are out there in the field with the department heads, they can show you what their wish lists are and what they need and what they're looking for out of the next fiscal year. And so you will have that knowledge when they do come in before
Yeah.
you for a formal presentation. So I was just kind of back up from town meeting
Yep.
all the way through to today.
So you're suggesting as of Wednesday, March 13th, we should be,
Yeah, if things look like we have some really concrete data, and we may be able to schedule a Wednesday before then, but I'll be in touch with Karen, and if we could start earlier. I just am not optimistic at this point,
yeah,
and I don't want to waste your time. If you're going to be meeting every Wednesday, and even if we have to squeeze in, if we're really not done, we might need another special weeknight meeting.
yeah,
So.
okay. So does that sound good to everybody? We'll start meeting weekly for this season until town meeting, starting Wednesday, March 13th. And then every Wednesday thereafter, and then we'll see how it goes if we need to make any adjustments as time goes on. Okay.
That would, so right through to Wednesday, April 10th, and that's when you'd be looking at the final version. And we'll be wrapping up everything because we have to get it to the printer, so.
Okay. Sounds like a plan to me. Okay. So now, I think we're close enough.
Yeah, so why don't I just say to the Finance Committee, thank you for having us in. At the last meeting, we discussed having the fiscal team come in and representatives of the Board of Selectmen to really focus on the revenue side of the budget, because that's really what we have most knowledge of at this time. We have the town's revenue comes from various sources, primarily property taxes. So we have Sean McFadden, the principal assessor here. He'll be kicking it off. The town accountant will also be discussing the other factors to deal with the revenue and the analysis. And Karen Summit, our treasurer collector, is running a little late this evening, but she can discuss in your packet for this evening, which is tagged 7:30 p.m. appointment at the end, some of her tax collection information and also some debt schedules. So you can get an idea of where things are going with tax collection, because that's revenue for the town. And the selectmen will also be giving you an overview of where they see things going revenue-wise, but additionally they'll be focusing also on the Triton assessment, since that particular expense in our town budget really takes up more than 50% of the budget, and certainly I think it's about 70% of property tax revenue. So, of the town. And we'll follow up on also the selectmen's notice to the Triton School Committee of a revenue sharing proposal, which would be, as we discussed at the last Finance Committee meeting, 50% of the town's new growth and the 2.5 levy that we raise each year. That proposal was sent to the school committee, and we're still not sure where things stand, but in your packet, there's some information from the school committee. Okay, so I'm gonna turn it over to Sean, and his spreadsheet's at the top of the package.
Okay, so annually, I determine what the new growth for the town is gonna be based on new construction, new additions, and permits that we received. So this year, I'm estimating about $10 million in new growth, which is kind of in line with where we've been the past few years because of the economy. We were at a time, we were up to 34 million, and things really slowed down dramatically. But I'm very conservative every year because you never know what's going to happen. They started a new development down the street, condominiums. Nothing's been built, just started, nothing has sold. So I have 8 permitted, so I estimated they would be completed. Hopefully they'll sell and they'll build more, but I have to be conservative. Approximately 12 to 14 new homes. Most of those are under construction, and they will be done by June 30th. And then we do have an industrial building on Route 1. Ipswich Bay Glass is building their final 6th building, and that definitely will be done within probably the next 2 months. So I'm expecting that. Also, it's a revaluation year for the town, and I am expecting, which is positive, for the first time. The market's been very volatile in the town. It depends on the house, depends on the day. And condos have suffered, land valuations have suffered, but I am expecting an increase in some property classes for this year, which will help us keep our tax rate as it is, maybe go down a little, because every time values go up, the rate drops, because the budget's a factor that affects that. So I'm hopeful that we won't keep seeing the increases in the tax rate, because that helps us get business and make things continue to grow.
Sure. And you look through June 30th?
Yes, June 30th is my cutoff date. So a lot of construction. There's a lot going on now. We've had a mild winter up to a point. A lot seems to happen in April. I get my bearings, things start coming together, and I know we're definitely in line.
So you said $10 million in new growth. What does that
Valuation.
translate? What does that translate
Say
in
about
taxes?
145.
Yeah.
145,000. Okay.
At the 14.50 tax rate.
Yeah, it's not a lot of money, but it's
No.
something. It used to be a lot of money. So that's a spreadsheet of where I'm seeing the new growth. And if any of those things that are listed with no growth suddenly come together, like the Pleasant Street, they tore down that old 2-family, and he's marketing condos. If he's able to, I think he's waiting until he gets something under agreement to start. That could be growth that I'm not expecting. But I wanted to be conservative at this point so that we weren't in for a surprise.
I have a revenue page in there. It's the one with my name on top. It might have been the second one in your packet.
Yep, it's the second one.
At this point, a lot of it's estimates this early in the year, but top part is revenues. Our revenues really only come from 4 sources. We have taxes, we have the state money, we have local receipts, which is mostly motor vehicle, and then other savings and whatnot. So there's not a whole lot of divining here to do. There's 4 pockets of money we look at. The state aid at this point is level funded at $575,000. House 1 was up a little bit, but we were advised not to use those numbers by the senator and
That's right.
representative that were here last week.
And we do have a package for the Finance Committee of all the materials Representative Brad Hill brought to the selectmen at our meeting on February 4th. So that's really for your review, and the selectmen may touch base on that as well.
Free cash is looking pretty good this year. I think we'll have $600,000. And then in other, we get some money back from the water department for the overhead, the costs that we pay for directly, health insurance, retirement, life insurance. And then each year we set aside money for the overlay for real estate taxes that aren't paid. And once that's resolved, there's money left there that we can use.
But also for exemptions.
Yeah.
And things like that.
So, $15 million there. Right off the top, there's money that's spent that doesn't go to town meeting, it's just withheld from the quarterly payments from the state. Mosquitoes, MBTA assessments, those are pretty high, and we never really discuss them. They're off the top. This year, our mosquitoes are $54,000. I think it's worth it. I look pretty new. It's not much.
And it is level funded. The
But
selectmen,
next year,
the selectmen did get notice
Yeah.
from Northeast Mosquito Control.
MBTA, we paid $38,000 to have a train station here.
Mhm.
You know,
How much?
38,000. It was 38,055 this year. And then the Essex Aggie goes up and down with kids there, so I don't know what it's going to be next year. But so after the revenues, the next section there is stuff that comes off the top, those state assessments, and then allowance for abatements that I discussed earlier for real estate bills that won't get paid. And then we have a few other items. The treasurer needs money to do tax title work, and there's often interest on the ATV cases. We've had some big phone ones.
Yes, we have.
So we're down $14 million. If you take out the schools at $8 million, right now in there Whittier's level funded, but Triton's at 2.8%. That's how I came up with that $8 million. Take that out, and we have $6 million left. And then if you take out insurance, retirement, and debt, we're down to $4.6 million to run the rest of the town. Not much when you start subtracting all that.
Mhm. That free cash number, is that final or that's an
No,
estimate?
it's not, it's an
Okay,
estimate.
okay.
I need to turn that in, I need that in now. We had a lot of turnbacks last year that we don't normally have, and we made a little bit more money. Free cash, I should explain, it's made up of two things. It's both if we didn't spend money, if we had turnbacks, and if we made more than we estimated. So it's a combination of those things. And we had favorable returns on both sides of that this year. Fiscal 12, I'm talking. We actually closed fiscal 12. We didn't use it in this current year. We wait and put in fiscal 14 so that there's a known number. So that we know for sure that we have it by the time we finalize the 14 budget. Anything else on there? A quick run through it. I found the free cash note I was looking for. Last year we had $330,000 turned back in for expenses not used. We had a couple positions not filled. We had extra interest money. We had money, lots of different pockets in there. Snow and ice, we didn't spend it all for the first time ever.
Yeah.
It was a good year
Yeah.
for a number of reasons. We had a lot of money.
How's it looking this year now with the last
I
snow?
haven't gotten all the bills for the weekend yet. We'll have to go in.
Not as good after this last weekend.
Yeah, I don't know. However, most years, when we get to June, if there's any money left in the reserve fund, we'll have to put that into the snow and ice deficit. So I think this year, unless it snows a lot from now on, it shouldn't have an impact on fiscal 14 yet. We should be able to make it with the reserve fund monies, but it depends how many more snow tones we get.
Yeah.
And how much you have left as, things happen and there's emergencies
That's
and unforeseen expenses that come around.
Yeah.
You could see something show up on that agenda slot, FY13 reserve fund transfers, which we haven't
And I
submitted
know
anything on yet,
There
which
are
is
some
good.
departments that are getting low though.
There may be.
Deal with.
Yeah, so we watch that carefully. And also the selectmen have implemented over the past 5 years or so, really, we have a hiring freeze now. The board's philosophy is to stretch the dollar as long as you can. So we've had the hiring freeze, I want to say,
Yes.
maybe like 7, 8, 10
7, 8
years.
yeah.
Probably back when you were on your first term, Bob, back in 2000. So we do, we have positions that weren't funded or, that used to have employees in there that there's no funding for it, or, we cautiously look if things aren't looking good in a particular year. The selectmen are inclined not to lift the freeze for an open position if it somehow becomes vacant. And additionally, if a crisis does occur in the middle of fiscal year, when the state cut local aid, a mid-year, what they call the 9C cuts, the selectmen right out of the box, I believe in January, had asked for everybody to be very conservative in their current budgets, just because we did want to make sure we made it to the end of the year, but if we can also turn back some money into the general fund on June 30th, it does help the town for the next year and the year after.
Mhm.
So I don't know if the chairman and vice chairman want to chip in.
I think I'll talk about the schools. As you know, I'll particularly start off. Raleigh, we're a lean, mean town. That's how we run I think our budgets and how we run the town. Going forward, we often in the school, when we had the tri-town meeting last year, we met with the other two towns. One of the things that came out of those meetings was the tax, the new growth, and also the 2.5% tax levy, and those two numbers together, and then we would cut that number in half and offer that to the schools. And this year, our new growth is 145,000, and the 2.5% increase, the tax levy is $288,982, for a grand total of $433,982, which we offered to the school at $216,991. Now, if you go to the Triton School budget and go to page 5, now this budget is based on the governor's budget, if that passes. So if you listen to the selectmen's meeting of 2 weeks ago when Representative Hill was here and also Senator Tarr, they weren't sure that that budget was going to pass. So this budget, I'm not sure of, that I'm holding my hand from Triton. So if you look on page 5, there's 3 scenarios here, starting from number 1 down to number 3. The third scenario is the one that we offered $216,991, which Triton would put up from their E&D $208,485, and that would be a level funded budget. But if you go into page 3 at the bottom, this is my concern. This budget at the very bottom is $283,875. Now, this is based, again, as I said, on the governor's budget. And there's also, I talked to one of the school committee members, and there was another $60,000 floating around for another item on their budget, which, if you notice that Newbury is a negative number, they will probably be a negative number for the next 2 or 3 years. Evidently, their evaluation they've been over-evaluated through the years, so they are probably not gonna pay anything next year either to Triton. So that burden is gonna fall upon Salisbury and Raleigh. So if that 70,000 that I was talking about that is still out there floating, you cut that number in half between Salisbury and Raleigh. So that would be $35,000 on top of this $283,000. Now, if the governor's budget is not approved, which it didn't sound very promising from our representatives, that would be another additional, that would be the Chapter 70 money of $70,000, so another $35,000 on top of that. So if you're looking, there's 283, we could be looking at $350,000. Now, Joe Perry is up there tonight in pleading our cause, and we're looking for level funded from the schools, and that would be the $216,000. This budget, I believe, is level services. There's a difference between the way we look at the budget between Triton and here. So, again, I am not sure what we're facing as we go into this budget season. And no firm number has come out. Hopefully, that will come out, and hopefully we will prevail with the $216,000. So.
Yeah, and Representative Hill and Senator Tarr explained to the selectmen, if you look in your package, from that information, if the top sheet is the estimated local aid to Triton, and then it goes on to the towns, what we call cherry sheet, and his governor's house budget there. The reason is there's his budget plan has expectations that there'll be a major revamping to the state's tax code. And there's an analysis in here that he provided, Representative Hill provided. So there's a lot of suppositions. Usually the governor's budget tends to be a little more conservative in terms of local aid and Chapter 70 aid. And as the state, as cities and towns do at this time in spring, are developing revenue estimates and expectations and looking at revenue trends. So in this case, the opposite has happened. The governor has started in at a high number, whereas usually the governor's number is pretty conservative, and it would build up as it goes to the House, goes to the Senate, goes to the conference committee. By April, they've got a lot more information and data on how tax collections are coming in from the various income tax, sales tax, etc. So this is an unusual circumstance this year. It's certainly, there's a lot of contingencies, and as they pointed out, for the amount of changes to the tax code that are going to happen, and they're going to remove deductions for childcare and things like this. This is all part of the governor's plan. Triton's only going to get $70,000 more in Chapter 78 from last year, yet the taxpayers in the 3 communities would be giving up a lot of deductions on various things. It's right in your package. So that's just one example. I'm not sure, this is why they're saying that they're hearing, and from other legislators at the State House, if that's really going to make it through, because this is really has major impact to the taxpayers in here. So they're saying level fund that number. And they're also, as you know, already discussed at a prior meeting, I think in the fall, that the governor was looking to get legislative permission to make cuts to state aid. He was seeking cuts because the tax revenue for the tax revenue numbers he got in October weren't at the expectation levels that they thought. So he was going to cut from the regional transportation account, various accounts that the governor has authority to cut from. He does not have the authority to cut from the state aid numbers that you see on the cherry sheet in the front without legislative approval. So knowing that this fiscal year is somewhat tenuous, their tax collection revenues aren't at what they thought they were going to be, it's kind of hard to look out and have these expectations that there's going to be enough revenue to make a lot of changes to state aid. And then also there's a whole plan for transportation. You probably saw that in the news, expanding rail service and things like that. Did you want to elaborate on anything?
No, I think I'm
Okay.
that would be something that's obviously it's going to be a tight position until we can definitely nail down the school as to what they're really going to do and try and vote on it. With Newbury in the position that they're in, they're not going to create any waves, if I can say that. So it's going to be Rowling and Salisbury that are going to carry the basic burden.
Can I ask a question? How was Newbury over-assessed, and what happened there, and how come it took 3 years for whoever to find out about it? Anybody know that
Basically,
reason?
the state formula that they were using, and for
As far
some
as we
reason,
know.
I don't know whether it was Newbury's reporting figures that might have been a little out of whack, or whether the state did something that plugged in something that wasn't supposed to be there or something like that. I don't know. I mean, we really don't know why it happened.
I've been in conversations with Joe Story, the chairman up there, and one of the scenarios he gave me was, for instance, Plum Island, where Plum Island has been taking, heavy seas and been, you cannot get flood insurance any more than $250,000 for Plum Island now.
Sorry.
So,
I can't. I looked into it. I
okay.
don't want you to continue on. I'm like, no. There was something in City and Town that came in just the other day. They instituted a new formula that was being enacted over multiple years. And we're still researching exactly why Newbury has gone down. We were just reviewing it this afternoon. I did check with the state on what Bob had heard from another town. and that didn't seem to hold water. It's not really the scenario. There's a formula at Department of Education that they recalculated, instituted over 3 years. And we're trying to figure out, because other surrounding towns who are regional in different districts are also taking large hits, decreases. We're trying to understand, hopefully we can talk to them and understand why, and if they're getting the same scenario that we're getting here, that Newbury's going to pay little or nothing. We want to double check.
They have a decrease, they're still paying quite a bit, it's just
Yes,
going down
but
to this
exactly.
year.
But there's also over in Boxford, there's similar, in Boxford and Topsfield has similar, so we need to research
Yeah.
further. We just started looking into that.
Well, it's a major hit for us if they, you know, based on these changes in the assessment, you
Yeah.
know, I mean,
Well, granted,
for,
we would mean that we paid less
Exactly.
prior, so it's just,
yeah, but if you wanna buy into that, unless, maybe we should do the same thing Newbury's doing, we can get that kind of deal too. I mean, I'd like to know more of the particulars
Yeah.
about.
That's what we're
Well,
trying to find
that
out, 'cause
happened,
maybe
you
they
know?
overpaid for years, maybe we
the
underpaid. We need to research and find out exactly why
Yeah.
that changed the way it did. But other towns in the area, in other regional schools, it's similar scenarios. They've gone down where the others have gone up. It may be something that we need to research it
Yeah.
further.
We're still looking at it, and
Sorry.
but I know
want you to say.
this, and I wasn't sure, there was some developing
Developing
news
news
this
at, like,
afternoon, and I
4
got
o'clock.
tied up on a different meeting.
Everyone was leaving.
If you look at the last page on that Triton handout that we got from Selectman Joe Perry from the Triton Budget Workshop, there's no narrative or explanation here, because we have the same feeling that Mr. Santulu has, you know, where's the explanation for some of this thing? We believe that there was a reconfiguration, and they're using household income, as my understanding,
Something
is
like
one of
that.
the factors in setting foundation,
And community wealth,
spending.
they have all
So
scenarios.
there's no explanation or to say what this means, but that's, I think, where we're getting to. There's a new factor being involved, not just property wealth, but income.
Yes,
And
and
so they
income
looked
wealth and
back and
property wealth
reconfigured that.
is a whole.
We're still trying to find out.
They brought it up at the school meeting on last Thursday, and they gave a high-level overview. Honestly, it didn't make sense to me, besides that it does have to do with them bringing income more into the calculation, and it seems like they're making a big adjustment this year instead of spreading it across a few years. So that was as much as I
Well, I know
gathered, but
when they enacted the education reform law back in the early the 90s, there was a flaw that was always brought up by the Cape Cod towns, where there is very high property wealth, but a lot of those are seasonal homes, and the residents there, for the most part, don't have the income levels that really reflect some of the property values on Cape Cod, I think Martha's Vineyard. So I know for years, I think the DOE has been trying to address that kind of a situation where you could have, you know, multi-million-dollar homes, yet the year-round residents, you know, are really working in the community, you know, if they're on the island or elsewhere down there, they're not, you know, working in 128 in Boston. They're living and making a living in those really resort kind of towns. So that's always been a flaw with the formula. And this may have, and I'm not sure, may be a way to address that. I'm not sure.
So the income wealth is personal income or business income wealth?
I'm not sure where they're getting the data. Probably from the Department of Revenue, income tax.
It must be income tax.
You know,
There was confusion that it was on the property tax side, but when I talked to the Department of Revenue last week, when I was it last week or this week?
last week,
This
I
week.
think you were there, right? Oh, no, this
It was this week.
Monday.
This
we
week's
were-
gone by. I asked them because there was confusion whether equalized value was used to determine the changes, and it was not. Not that they were aware of. So it has to be on another component of the Department of Revenue.
So is there any sense from Salisbury on their,
Do you know anything else like that?
from the school meetings, like if they're concerned with the budgets, are they proposing a similar sharing of
We
Mm-hmm.
try
revenue?
to have a tri-town meeting, And I approached Joe Story in Newbury, and I also approached the chairman up in Salisbury. And the towns would discuss issues, but except for Salisbury said they would discuss everything except school issues, because they had Selectman Bolio was working with their finance board, and they were working towards with Triton. So they wouldn't discuss a school issue in a tri-town meeting. So I found that a little bit frustrating, because I believe that we all have something in common, Triton. So.
Okay.
So when they make these decisions, so does legislatures get involved, or is it just like DE always decides they're gonna do this and then they just do it and there's no, feedback or anything from any of the legislatures or anybody? Is it just
I
the
don't know
way it
the
is?
formulas.
You
A
know?
lot of times the government passes laws and then has bureaus and divisions that enact them, and they give them the powers to enact them equitably. And I don't know how that works, but I know on my end, the assessors end, that's why we have Bureau Local Assessment. They set up policy.
Yeah, I think when we look into this a little more, we'll report back to the finance committee, maybe in a memo or something, with an explanation a little more detailed than we're able to give you. We apologize for that, because we're just as baffled as you are, and I certainly don't recall seeing anything passed into law regarding the formula change.
And we just received it. It just came out. They should have released it a month ago.
Yeah, well, the first we saw was from this package that Selectman Perry provided to us.
The explanation.
I think the new calculations have caught a lot of people's attention. I mean, there have been a lot of changes across the board. At the meeting again last Thursday, Christopher Farmer had put together a spreadsheet of all the wealthy communities and the millions of dollars more that they're all getting out of these changes. And they might be getting more because they have never gotten so much in the past, so the state might be trying to adjust to give them more so they're not spending or not having to spend so much of their own money. But it's hitting everybody at a time where budgets are so tight, it seems unfair to, when we're going to be getting a negative 3,000, the W towns are getting millions more. So I think, it's definitely under scrutiny. That's a good thing.
And I think you know better than anyone else looking at the budget, when you get down to the bottom line, that $4,665,028
On my sheet.
of what we run the town on. When you start to cut that up, that is when you realize, just a couple $1,000s is a lot of money for each department.
Yep.
And I mean, we're not talking Triton. Triton's talking $35 million overall budget to our $15 million budget.
Yeah, 60 with 33.
And at and again, you've heard me preach about this before. 60% of our revenue goes right up to Triton, goes right to school. I'm not against that, but I'm just saying
We don't have much to work with.
we don't have much to work with. And we need to run the town just as much as they need to run the school.
Well, I hope they're taking Joe's feedback, because at their last meeting, when the school committee was reviewing the budget, there were people around the table wanting to add back positions, 1.5 positions, and it was around 85,000 just for the salaries, and then there's benefits and other things, so,
And again, $85,000.
And that's on top of these numbers already.
That's a lot of money in a town like ours,
Yeah.
$85,000.
Yeah. We do have in your package for this evening's appointment section, the selectmen, as Bob, Mary and I mentioned at your last meeting, sent a letter to the school committee when they had offered the $216,000 as a revenue sharing proposal with the school. They did make an inquiry, and I don't know if Selectman Stoll wants to talk about that regarding health insurance. As we've discussed in the past, the town, the Board of Selectmen worked with the employee union groups here to make a change to and switch to the tier program after the state passed the new healthcare law. You know, we were contacted by the Office of Administration and Finance at the state. You know, what have you done to, you know, in response to this law that we worked so hard to pass, and in the town of Raleigh did. We did make those changes. The employees are now on a tier-based plan, which saves money. The selectmen were also wondering, what has the school done? So we did get a response, the selectmen did in today's mail, and the letter is dated February 7th, but it did come in today's mail. From the school committee, if you want to review that, it's in your packet.
Yeah, I spoke to Selectman Perry this afternoon and asked him to inquire about what the school has done in regards to their health care and address it. So he's going to come back tonight, tomorrow, with how they're going to address it. Or if they have addressed it.
As far as the retiree healthcare, I had raised that question at the last meeting, and they said they were waiting for the governor's proposal to be enacted, and they believed it was passing through. I mean, it was moving along. I don't know what the time frame would be though. Then, like,
Yeah, I think they're talking about the OPEB guidelines that came out of the special commission. Is that what they're talking
Yeah,
about?
he
So
wants to
that
increase-
just was released. So those were the proposals from the commission. So that needs to be made into the form of a bill, and I'm not sure.
yeah.
But
And they're changes, but it's increasing the minimum years from 10 to 20. It's increasing the required age from between 50 to 60 to 55 to 65. And it's tying your percentage into your longevity. So the longer you work, the more that the state or local municipality would pick up.
It hasn't been approved.
But it's, no, not
That's just
necessarily
talked
talking about
about,
it. It was
right, yeah,
proposed.
okay.
They were suggesting at the meeting, and I didn't have the details on it, how far along it was. And Bruce Tard stepped out at that point, so I couldn't ask him, because he was talking about the different budgets and what he thought would happen.
we'll make an inquiry on that, you know, at the Mass.
Because if it's not moving, I had the impression from them that it was
Okay.
moving forward
Okay, the
pretty
OPEB.
surely, and that would be something that then they would adopt, which would be an improvement. It's still, I mean, it's, these benefits are still going to compound.
So Karen Summit, our treasurer collector's here, and I see mentioned earlier, she's got some sheets in your packet. It says, starts with treasurer info, and she's going to give an overview over some debt projections and also collection information.
All right.
Karen.
So the first page is basically just an outline of what we have coming due in terms of principal and interest this year. As you can see, we have a couple of capital equipment items that are going to be in their final year. And, you know, the town has a very manageable level of debt. We were able to refund some of our debt last year, which is, you know, saving us quite a bit of money over the, I think there's about 10 years left on some of these. So, I mean, we have a very manageable level of debt. The top section is the general fund, the town debt. The middle section is the water department, and then the CPA is at the bottom. So that's just kind of a preview of what you'll see when we start the formal budget process. Any questions on any of that? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, the fire pumper truck, that's 94,410. So what's the value of the fire pumper truck itself? Are we saying it's like $1 million for what the
That's probably
payment is?
principal and interest there.
Right, that was a
Right.
5-year loan. I
Oh,
don't.
5-year loan, okay.
Right,
So,
right. It was one of it was part of the capital equipment State House notes that we've done. We've done 3 of them. And the first 5-year note will be paid off in fiscal year 14. And that was part of that.
But we have a life more than 5 years for the fire pumper truck, isn't there?
Sue, you can probably speak better.
We pay 90,000 a year in principal.
Yeah, but how many years? I mean, 5 years, you said. I mean,
I couldn't
Is how
address how
long
long
the
it's
debt
gonna
was.
last.
But I'm
the
just,
asset
a
itself.
fire pumper truck should last more than 5 years,
We
5
bonded
years,
for
hopefully,
5
you
years,
know.
Yeah, yeah,
I
it's
don't know,
only
is it
about,
new?
it's only about 5 years old.
Minimum 10,
Yeah,
hopefully 15.
Yeah.
yeah,
If we get really lucky, we can drag it up to 20.
which would be uncommon in Rowley. Yeah,
It must have been 450,000.
that's right.
Right.
Yes,
Yes.
that sounds like a right
Yep.
number.
Yeah.
That comes back to me now.
The second sheet is this one. It's a one-page, and basically it's just kind of a summary of how well we're doing on our property and personal property tax collections. First, second, third, and fourth quarter. We just had the third quarter due. So, as you can see, we've got, a very good collection rate. Bills that aren't paid on time, by statute, we collect 14% interest. And, most of these will get paid. We have very low default. Raleigh's a desirable town, and we find that if taxpayers aren't paying, taxpayers who have mortgages, the banks will pay us. We've had very good luck with low foreclosures in Rowley. We've had strong numbers in the past, and I don't see any difference.
Mhm.
So that's just kind of a snapshot.
Surprised some people have already paid for May.
Well, what happens is sometimes the bills are relatively small, and it's easier to write one check, or people go away.
Okay.
We have some people that would just rather, not deal with it when they're in Florida or, other warm places. So that's just kind of a snapshot. And then the third one is basically, this is what we call collector's revenue. And what it does is it shows all the sources of inflows into the town. The treasurer's office is responsible for all, and the collector's office is responsible for all the money coming in, and then the accounting office tracks it when it goes out. So this is all the different pieces of the general fund. So if you look, the first column after the account number and the description is kind of what we're projecting for revenue, and then this year 2013 is where we are through basically 9 months of the year. And then, versus where we were last year. So you can see we're pretty much, at or above where we were. In terms of motor vehicle excise, we just had our first commitment go out a couple of weeks ago, and that's over 6,000 bills. So in the next, 15 to 20 days, we'll see very high motor vehicle. And then we'll have, more commitments throughout the year, but this is really the biggest one. So this just kind of gives you a look at, where the sources of funds that come into the town of Rowley are coming from. So you can, feel free to take a look at it. If you have any questions, you can see it goes from the tax collections, and then it will go through individual departments. If you flip through, you'll see the town clerk, the planning board, the police, permits from the inspector's office, and on through Board of Health licenses.
And those numbers are gross. During the course of the year, we do a lot of refunds, so they do come down with real estate and motor vehicle refunds, which will be on my books for that.
Right.
Let me just understand, this year, 2013, that's for the 9 months. And then
It's
last year,
it's for the same
2012.
period in last year. So it would be from July 1st through today, basically what we've collected, as compared to what we collected that same period in fiscal year 12. These
Okay,
are
so-
fiscal years, not calendar years.
Right, so the last year, 2012, is also just 9 months.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Probably 8.
Yeah,
Yeah.
7.5.
So,
I just think that we've had 3 tax payments due, so.
Can I ask you a question? I'll back up to the first sheet on the water debt. Is everything definitive in the, like, are all those numbers?
Yes.
That's it? Because in the past, I think due to the, whatever way they would process some of the loans or request the loans, I don't know, so the numbers changed.
There was some uncertainty as to when we would start paying the SRF,
Okay.
the state revolving fund.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's
okay.
now been,
What's happened is
With
we've
the
been
new-
notified by the state revolving fund that we are going to be permanently borrowed,
Mhm.
and this is the schedule that we received from them.
Okay,
We're expecting that is going to happen probably in February or March, but these principal and interest payments will happen next fiscal year.
okay,
and this is written in stone now.
Yes, unless the state changes their mind.
okay.
Karen, maybe you could talk about the one with the asterisk on it a little more detail, because that'll be the big thing next fiscal year.
Right, right. So the water treatment, the last line, is what's being permanently borrowed. And because we're borrowing that through the state revolving fund, in this fiscal year, we'll be paying a one-time origination fee of about $55,000. That's what the state charges us. Basically, they're the ones that are paying for the debt to be processed and sold. That's kind of our piece of that. And then there's an admin fee every year. The first year it's about $82.50, and that will go down as the principal amount goes down. I believe it's like 1.5%. So those, when we normally when we do debt for the general fund, we incorporate the cost of the borrowing into the borrowing, so it's not something that we have to pay additional, it's all incorporated, but because we're borrowing from the state and they're giving us the 2% interest, we do have to front that the first year.
Okay.
So at some point, when we schedule the water department to come in with their budget, the bottom part of this spreadsheet will be all the water department borrowing. That's all comes through water rates and water customers and users. So the number that you see there for water treatment 2 will be the amount that will need to be raised in the water budget.
Mhm.
So how many years is that loan?
It's 20.
And that was the longest?
Yes, that's what the state will allow us for drinking water.
And that's about 11 million of it, 10.9.
10.997. The other piece of it is, if you see the water treatment 1, that was the $1.3 million that we permanently borrowed last year with the bridges for 20 years. So those two make up the 13 million.
In the small print, it says, does not include bond counsel fees.
What happens is anytime the town issues debt, we have bond counsel review. So the fee for that is going to be $12,500.
Okay.
But it's more of an expense than, part of the debt. It's a bill that will have to be paid.
So that'll be paid out of the water department expense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions, anybody? No? No? Thank you.
So Karen, we were thinking that we will make another appearance before the Finance Committee when things get finalized. I'd like to be in just touch with you on that, Karen, and we'll bring the team back in to go over sort of the final picture of revenue and expenses. So the expenses are evolving based on our revenue data and what we can and can't afford. So I would like to come back and meet with you you know, maybe before you start meeting with the department heads, or maybe not, we can squeeze it in on a separate meeting.
Yep.
Okay?
That sounds
And we'll
great.
also plan a special night for just the water budget this year. I've been working, the team here has been working closely with the business manager and developing a new budget that will look very different from what you've normally seen in the warrant. So we think that we'll probably need at least a large portion of an upcoming meeting dedicated to that,
Yep, okay.
to answer your questions. Okay?
Okay, sounds great. Thank you very much, really appreciate it.
So, who's of the water department's gonna do this? Who's? Yeah,
I'm just gonna stay. I'm gonna just stay till the end. I'm staying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, we've jumped around a little bit, but now we'll jump back to the agenda. We have number 7, updates from FinCom reps, liaisons to the boards, committees, and departments. So, we want to start over here.
Sure. I met with Pam Jacobson from the library. She's the head librarian. We went over her current budget, and I think when we looked at the budget last time, she was at 42%, so where we were at the halfway point. But the reason for that is at the beginning of each year, they do renew their subscriptions to periodicals, things like that. So like that was part of it, and there was also, I think, software licensing. There was just basic upfront costs that had to be spent. She wasn't concerned about having any shortfalls in her budget for the year. She went through a lot of information for me as to how the state determines what the town needs to spend for the library services. There is a formula.
Really? Wow.
Yes. So it was pretty interesting in that there was a gift made to the town which allowed the library to be opened more hours. So in addition to offering the town, you know, better service in the library, it actually allowed, it put the town in a lower bracket as far as how much of their operating budget they need to spend on purchasing new materials. So it was originally 19, and I think it dropped to about 16. So that was good. So, you know, basically, the budget, in order to stay within the Merrimack Valley Library Consortium, you have to meet these guidelines. As far as upcoming expenditures or what she would like for the new budget, there's 2 part-time positions that she would like to turn into full-time positions, so go from 20 hours, and I'm not sure if their week is 40 or something slightly less than that. I don't know what a full-time is. Part of the reason for that is just use of the library. The other is that she's training these people, and then they're moving off to other libraries where they can get full-time jobs.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough.
Yeah.
So that's a proposal that she's going to be presenting to the selectmen. And I suggested that she put together a schedule of the hours that she could see the additional coverage being needed. And I suggested that she look at library usage to really validate the need for that additional services.
Is that bequest annual bequest? Was it a blanket?
It was someone left it money in their will.
Okay, so it's a one-time donation?
But
is it a trust?
It's a trust, I
Okay.
believe, and so it's not going to end anytime soon.
Oh, great, okay.
There's actually a couple different trusts that they get money from. Some more than others, and I think there's a couple different departments in town that benefit from one in particular.
Oh, good.
It's kind of interesting.
Wow. Thank you. So, Larry, anything?
With the, we'll get the easy one over first, the Council on Aging, I'm meeting with them tomorrow to go over basically last year's budget so that when they're coming up with this year's, they'll, where it's level funded, it should be about the same. And, you know, that they basically, besides wages, just have a $13,000 expenses So I don't think that's going to change very much or be very concerned about. With the highway department, I wasn't going to bother them until after the snowstorm, which they did a very good job on, at least in my area. Scott has been hospitalized since Saturday, and I'll have to get with Debbie to see what's going to be happening budget-wise there. I do know that they were thinking of a new backhoe, but I don't know whether they were, I talked with the supervisor, I don't know whether they were going to do that with a warrant or I guess a Chapter 90. But again, I'll have to get with Debbie to see what's going to happen as far as who's going to be working on the budget. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Steve, anything you've heard around town we should know about?
New yogurt shop.
Oh, oh, I just heard about that.
Have
It's
you been
gonna,
there yet?
it's going to
good.
compete for business with the Downriver
And
ice cream place.
there's
when it
another
opens.
yogurt shop opening up too, in next to the Mexican restaurant.
Oh, really?
It'll be like,
I didn't know yogurt was so
We're
popular.
gonna
We're gonna be the
yogurt-
dessert
we're gonna be
capital of,
yogurt inundated.
Essex here.
Better than another nails place.
I don't know.
That's funny. Well, I'll give a brief update. Just I have met with the different people in the town hall, the assessor's office, treasurer's office, Concom, town clerk, planning board, ZBA, and then Debbie and some of the selectmen. Just to kind of touch base, and it wasn't so much discussion of budget planning, although some things came up. But in general, I just want to say I'm impressed with everyone's conscientiousness in town hall about the spending. People really scrimp and save. They don't even put in for all their personal expenses to be reimbursed. They really always looking for new ways to try to save money and cut back so that they can pay for something that they're either required to have by the state or, you know, that to run their shop. So I think we're fortunate in that respect. Well, I'll wait and see if Bob Mary comes back, because I did have a question. Well, they had, a few of them had questioned about the personnel review that the selectmen were doing and wondering what the status of that was. Doesn't sound like we're going to have much money to do much with, even if they do have the recommendations or that study finalized, but we'll find out about that. And another thing that struck me in talking to different people, part of the scrimping and saving, people are working with very old computers, and I think that's, if we had any money, I would wish that we could buy people, or maybe take an inventory of what's out there and have some kind of a fund to replace the aging equipment, replace it when it reaches a certain age or something like that. Kind of like we've started for police cars and such, so that we're always staying on top of replacing the what we need. And if people are working with an 11-year-old computer, it can't be very efficient. You know, that's our that's how we do things nowadays. So if you have really aging equipment, it could be penny wise, pound foolish. I don't know. So TBD. And then we've already talked about the schools. Peter and I were at the meeting on Wednesday, the regular school committee meeting, and I attended the Thursday meeting where they had Bruce Tarr and some of the other new representatives.
Right.
Yeah, and they, so Bruce was very vocal about the House 1 budget being what the governor proposed, and it is so so far-reaching, kind of, those aren't his words, but it's based on a lot of very aggressive assumptions about economic growth and et cetera. So he doesn't expect that to stick. It didn't sound like. It sounds like they're trying to figure out what to counter-propose. So that would change, but he did reconfirm that he thought the calculations as far as what has come to Newbury's new minimum contribution, which is lower, he thought that, for whatever reason, he didn't think that would be changing. So, I don't know, so wait and see, I guess. We'll see what does come out of all of this. But so that's pretty much my update.
Okay.
And
Okay, the water department meetings have had very little about budget. They've had other things going on. They have established a fiscal team. The participants are the superintendent of the water department, town administrator, town accountant, town treasurer. This team is helping the water department work through their water rate analysis, and on the expense side, helping them develop their budget. And I've seen two editions of their budget, and there are some improvements that will make it much easier for us to look at. The water treatment plant is roughly 4 weeks behind schedule, but that's not necessarily correct dating, because when they're not able to work on the outside, they're doing things on the inside. So they believe the target date is going to balance itself out, just like building a house, basically. They have established a purchase order system. This is going to work as an oversight for the water commissioners, as well as accountability of who's ordering what. Purchase orders are to be approved before a purchase can occur, but this process is exempt, obviously, from emergency situations, a water main break, or whatever. They need to get what they need to get. In the budget, the only thing that I've seen definitive is that the wages are level funded on the first draft. The water department will be adding 2 articles on the special town meeting that will request budget transfers to pay for the overspent capital line. Assuming that all bills have been presented, these requests will total between $45,000 to $50,000. There are bills outstanding as of the 122 meeting that total $16,437 that have not been paid. The others that had been paid were charged to the expense maintenance instead of capital. These vendors have been paid, but the $16,000 still out has not. Last night there was 2 presentations by Veolia Water and United Water. Both of these are companies that could be contracted to assume responsibility of the new treatment plant. They could do a variety of things: day-to-day work, maintenance, licensing, and compliance would be their responsibilities. This was strictly an informational meeting. No quotes were given, no estimates were given. It's kind of
no even idea.
Not even a clue. So United Water did state that the agreement for the contractors, if United Water, if they went that route, and United Water was who they selected, their contractors would have to have use of our water equipment, trucks, etc. So the contractors come and use our equipment, essentially. That was not brought up by Veolia, so I don't know if that's a standard. A water operator gave his notice yesterday and will assume a similar position in a neighboring town, and his rate of pay will be roughly a $5 an hour increase. The commissioners are concerned that we have hired, trained, educated, and prepared employees for advanced licensing, only to lose them to others because of the wage disparity. 2 members of the Board of Selectmen were present and spoke to this, and it's being part of the study that has been performed.
Have we had a lot of turnover there?
Apparently, they get to where they should be, and then they find a position where it hasn't been huge, but it's been steady.
Okay.
Can I ask, do you know anything of the contractors? This contractor that came in, would the person that left would that position still be needed within the water department if they hired a contractor to run the water treatment plant?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, because that could make people
I
want to
don't
leave
know.
if they had an
Right,
opportunity.
I'm just wondering,
Right.
you know, what
I don't know the
Yeah.
answer to that.
Okay.
Question.
That is a good question. Tim Toomey, one of the Water Board Commissioners, volunteered to attend a Personnel Board meeting to bring this issue forward. Like I said, there's been very little discussion about the budget. I've been assured that this will be discussed at length at the next meeting, which is next Tuesday. One new thing they did attach to the budget, and I made copies of it for everyone. Where did I put my copies? Is they are starting what they're calling a capital account and a 5-year fiscal plan of their wish list for the next 5 years. So the first page is broken down by year, and then the back page is what it is they're intending to do with that. On page 2, one thing that they did change, and I actually do like it, each year it says, quantity, estimated cost, year of purchase. They're denoting whether it's going to be a capital plan program or if it's going to be considered a town meeting article to be passed. So that's helpful. And like I said, this is still all preliminary. This isn't etched in stone, but this is
So does
something new.
Does this include any maintenance costs of the water treatment plant, or this is everything?
No.
Okay.
This is their upcoming 5-year wish list, essentially. And like I said, there's been no discussion about any of this, so I don't really know how justified everything is. It
Yeah.
could be, but I don't know the answer.
So this is just proposed at this point?
This is, this is just in their first draft. I just wanted to share that so you can get an idea of their wish list.
Has this been changed from the meeting that I went to, or is it the same?
The back page has been changed to include whether it's going to be an article.
Oh, that's.
The
not-
numbers are
okay.
the same, but this is from the meeting that you were, this
Oh,
is the
okay.
updated one. And hopefully I'll find out more next week.
I got the impression they never capitalized things before.
I think the fiscal team that has gotten together to assist the water department actually is giving them
Guidance.
guidance.
Thank you. Peter, anything more to add?
Not really, because basically Jamie covered everything in the water and you covered everything in the... I have nothing that I can think of to add. No, I don't know. I don't really know anything. I mean, I didn't... Did they discuss that? Because I don't remember them talking about the Newbury thing, the meeting I went to. About that change in the assessment for...
I think they didn't talk about it as much in the Wednesday meeting because the school committee had already been briefed on it. That was really their
Okay.
meeting. So in the Thursday meeting, Brian Forget
Brought it
tried to
up.
explain a little more about how they came to the minimum contribution calculation.
And I wish I could have gone to that meeting, but,
It had to be, there's something about effort, if you're meeting your effort number, and I couldn't begin to explain it. He seemed to be aware of it, but everyone still had questions on it. It didn't seem to make sense, like how they're coming up with these numbers, and the results are painful for the smaller towns and the towns that are struggling. So.
maybe we have Brad Hill and Bruce Todd, two legislators, maybe they can help more than, it's good to have,
Oh, I think they were
Some,
definitely receptive
yeah.
and listening to the feedback around the table and people's frustrations. So we'll see. So that brings us to the end of our agenda. So we'll plan, as we said, to meet. The next meeting would be Wednesday, March 13th, and we'll meet weekly thereafter, unless something comes up that we need to alter our schedule and meet more frequently or less frequently. So we'll see.
Okay.
So, wow, it is 8:35. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? No? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.